Hey everyone, and welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast, episode 18. In this episode, I talk with an old friend from Canton, Illinois, Ryan Smith. Ryan, one of the best ways to describe him is a friend of mine who is a version of David Goggins. He's a huge inspiration. He's big into health and fitness, does a lot of amazing challenges for good causes, and Ryan and I grew up through basketball, growing up in the central Illinois area. He's been a professional fighter. He's always been just a motivating person in terms of taking your health and fitness to the next level. And it was so amazing to sit and have a conversation with him, especially someone like Ryan that we go back 20 plus years at this point. And because of his relentlessness in everything he does, I had to pick the book Relentless by Tim Grover for the book of the episode. This is a phenomenal book. If you've never heard of Tim Grover, he was the personal trainer that trained Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, the list goes on. And it's really about just having that relentless mentality to get things done and to take things to the next level. So with that being said, here is my conversation with Ryan. Ryan Smith, welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast. Here we are.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, dude, thanks for taking the time. And, dude, it's so good to talk to you, man. I think the last time I talked to you had to have been at the gym in Canton, probably. That's probably
I think the last time we've had like an actual longer form conversation other than a few texts here and there has probably been a couple of years.
You know what it was? It was when we did the interview when you were training uptown in Canton, if you remember that.
Oh, yeah. There was that. And then, I think there was that. And then we just ran into each other like Christmas or Thanksgiving a few years later. I think a year or two after that, probably at the gym. That was like 20 minutes or something.
Probably.
But, yeah.
That or I don't know if it would have been the Canton bars back then at that time, but when's the last time you were at a Canton bar, actually? 4
or 5 years.
4 or 5 years.
Yeah. I've been back in Canton. I'm back there pretty regularly, obviously, but man, it's just that's not on the docket ever. Hang out with a few of the friends, Krulak and the guys, or Hafner and Peoria or something like that. But aside from that, never. Like, it would be weird.
Yeah, but while the time during that era, though, it was definitely an era. It was definitely some good times were had.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, honestly, man, I think as we've gotten older, that's one of the things. It's like it's almost like a letdown, right? Because like you have so many good memories somewhere like that, and you have so much fun somewhere when you're growing up, and then you do it like a few years later, and it's just like, oh man, that wasn't epic like it was every time when we were 23.
Right. Oh man. Well, I mean, really, for the audience's sake, I mean, your and I's connections, Canton, where we both grew up, and more specifically, I would say it's through basketball.
Yeah.
Get even more specifically, it's probably the Canton YMCA, where we spent hours upon hours just playing basketball, man. And honestly, I think back to those times, and like, if it wasn't for that YMCA, man, I don't know what I would have done or what I would have maybe have gotten into,
100%. You and I both. I mean, well, I always got into those things too, because I made time for that too. But
right.
I mean, you and I both. I mean, I literally, no kidding, I had a 4-year span of my life. No, I'm sorry, a 3-year span of my life where I played basketball every day for a minimum of 4 hours for over 3 straight years. And I got a really bad flu when I was 17 years old that ended my streak, and I'll never forget it. Like, that's how much I played basketball, and I know you played right there with me. Mm-hmm. And literally, we had days where we spent 6, 7, 8 hours at the YMCA together playing basketball. It's crazy to look back on.
Yeah, I know, it was crazy. And it was, I mean, because really where we're from, like, I try to tell people when they go, oh, you're from, they go, where are you from? I'm like, Illinois. They go, oh, you're from Chicago. And I'm like, no, I'm from a small town near Peoria, which isn't Peoria, but it's even smaller.
Oh, yeah.
And you'll appreciate this. I had a girl out here one time in LA tell me, she goes, she grew up in LA, and she's like, what was it like growing up in the Midwest? Because we'd always used to talk about it growing up, and we just thought that you guys did nothing but get messed up over there. And I looked at her, I go, that's pretty accurate.
It's pretty accurate. There's a bunch of bars and churches and drugs. That's it.
things like remember like doorbell ditching and TPing and stuff like that.
Mhm.
You can't do that in big cities. Like you can't do that at all.
No, yeah, not at all. Yeah, literally. I mean, no kidding. We grew up in a town where I got pulled over one time, 5 of us in a car, and we had like something like 300 rolls of toilet paper in the car. And legitimately, the cop told us to be careful and have fun, and just like let us drive with 300 rolls of toilet paper at like 16 years old.
Yeah, just debauchery. But I mean, that's the one thing I do appreciate. Like, and I know you've lived other places too, and you do appreciate where we grew up. Yeah, do they have as much opportunities or cultural diversity there? No, but was it a safe place to grow up? Absolutely. Like for the most part, I would say.
Sure, it's safe. And then the other thing that I think happens in smaller towns that doesn't happen in bigger cities is, in my case specifically, all of my best friends, all of my closest friends to this day are legitimately the kids I grew up with, or the friends that I grew up with. You know what I mean? All of them. Like I've made however many X amount of so many friends since being an adult, and none of them are like in my inner circle. You know what I mean? Of like my tight friends, my closest friend. And I think that's way more. I think that happens more in smaller towns. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You get into so many things happen. And you're just closer to people in those towns because you don't have as many forms of entertainment. You don't have all of these things you can go do to occupy your time. So a lot of times you just sit with each other. You're playing games together. You're driving around, just cruising the town. You know what I mean? You're doing these things. I feel like you just build at least I did. I built deeper bonds with my friends that are lifelong bonds,
That's a good point. I never thought of it. Yeah, you make up a really good point. Yeah, like because we didn't have as besides like going to Peoria to go to the movie theater there. I remember it's such a big deal to like go to Buffalo Wild Wings in Peoria.
Listen, and the maybe the highlight of always going to Peoria was you had a 45-minute drive there and drive back that was full of just like
100%.
Legit. It's like when you hear about comedians like riffing on each other. That's what it's like growing up in a small town and having to drive 45 minutes with each other to go do anything. It's like you just sit there and riff on each other and make fun of each other and just like literally just talk shit the entire time to each other.
Yeah. No, 100%. And, the older I get, the more a place like Canton, or it doesn't have to be Canton, but a smaller community appeals more to me now. And I know we were talking in the pre-show room about living in bigger cities. And yeah, of course there's advantages to that and awesome things about it, but there's also downsides too. And I really liked what you were saying about your experience, because you lived in Chicago, right? Like the actual.
Yeah. I lived in like one of the meccas of busy Chicago in Wrigleyville.
You lived in Wrigleyville?
Yeah, I lived literally 2 blocks away from Wrigley Field for 5 years. So
what was that experience like? What was that like to live in Wrigleyville?
It was a form of culture shock. I'll say this. So I had a little bit of an advantage because we had so many friends, McSchooler and Stoner and those guys that lived up here. Mm-hmm. So the year before I moved up here, this is 2013, I came up here 15 times in 1 year to hang out with them, right? Because I knew I was going to move up. And so I came here 15 times, right? So by the time I moved up here, I had already like gotten used to taking the L. I knew the train system. I had a train card already. Like I had kind of inundated myself with trying to learn the city before I moved up here. With that being said, it was still a form of culture shock moving here. I mean, listen, the first summer I moved up in like May, like late May, I think of 2014. And that first summer it was almost like being a freshman in college again, away from home. I was like, oh my God, the bars are open until 5 a.m. I can do anything in the world within a 10-minute walk of where I live, and one of my best friends, again, went to preschool with the kid, and Peter Stoner is down the street from me, and I stayed with him for the first few months, and then he's down the street from me. And like, I had this first few months to where I like had to check myself regularly and say, you got to get control of yourself because this city will swallow you whole if you keep running around like a buffoon all the time.
It kind of sounds like my intro to Las Vegas when I moved there. I wasn't going to end well if I continued at the pace I was at. I'll put it.
Yeah, I had to have like a self-intervention just for Italian beefs, man. I had this Italian beef hot dog stand down the street from me. It's like world class. It's called Byron's. It's right in Irving Park. And I'm not kidding you. I discovered this place, and there was a point in time where I was eating like 4 to 5 Italian beefs a week, and like had gained like 15 pounds in the first 2 months I was in Chicago. I was like, all right, this is enough. I need to stop.
Yo, Chicago style hot dogs are legit though, man. I've had one at Wrigley Park.
It's like a mecca of food. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like deep dish pizza. Even there's, once you know Chicago, there's thin crust pizza here. It's a world class, amazing. Yeah, man, it's just a mecca of food. Like Italian beefs, hot dogs, just everything. It's crazy.
So Chicago's really amazing. It just in the wintertime gets ridiculously cold.
It's very rough. Yeah, it's very, very rough. It's like we talked about too. I think one of the things that LA is a little bit different. It's not built up so much like Chicago and Manhattan, New York City are. One of the things that, until you've lived in a major city where, you walk everywhere you go or you take the train or whatever, one of the things you don't realize is that you may park 10 or 15 minutes from where you live in your neighborhood and have to walk 10 or 15 minutes just to get to your place where you live.
Yep.
You walk to get groceries, and we're talking there's 8 inches of snow on the ground and 40-mile-per-hour winds, and it's 4 degrees outside. And you have to walk to get groceries, walk to get to your car. It's crazy, or just walk to go to work or wherever. And that was like I told you in the pre-show, man. We grew up 3 hours south of Chicago, and Chicago's winters are at least 25% worse than where we grew up, just because of the lake.
And our winters were bad where we grew up. So those.
Yeah, it's rough, man. Like I said, it was a culture shock. The first summer and like the fall were amazing. It was like one of the greatest times of my life. And then I hit that first winter, and I had like a 2 or 3 month period there where, literally, I think I'd experienced seasonal depression before I was in Chicago on like some scale. But when I got to the city and it was dark and cold and windy 24/7, it was 0 degrees and snow was everywhere, I was in bed by like 7 p.m. the first winter I lived there. I would just work and sleep and just like power through this first winter. And I learned a lot, man. I really did, because I started talking to friends, and they're like, listen, one thing you cannot do in this city is let this winter keep you inside. Like, you have to just live your life still. You just make yourself do it. I remember like the next winter, the second year I lived there, investing in like $500 in like stocking hats and gloves and the nicest winter coat I'd ever owned. And, had to go like stock up and prepare myself for it, man. It's a beast.
Wow. And then, so eventually you migrated out of the city.
Yeah. And like you just talked about, right? So as I've gotten older, I'm the same way. I just feel the need for more space, and I want some more peace and quiet around me, and I want some land, and and so I'm kind of in the middle territory of that right now, meaning I'm in the suburbs. I still live in an apartment complex, but where I live now is much more manageable for me. Traffic's not atrocious, and it's just way quieter, way more peaceful right now. And, starting to look around houses and stuff, right? And it's like, I constantly am like looking further away from the city, right? I'm looking more and more away from there. Yeah. Give me land. What's cheaper? There's less people. It's just, I'm migrating that way for sure. And Sam, by the time we're 50 or 60, I might be in a cabin in Montana by myself.
Dude, I'm telling you, man. I might be in that same boat eventually.
Yeah, there's something that's so appealing at this point in my life to, if nothing else, having like a vacation cabin or something. You know what I mean? Where I can go at any time. And matter of fact, I find a lot of happiness when I do go home to visit, to just have some of that peace and quiet. You know what I mean? And just be able to, I don't know. I feel like I breathe easier when I'm there.
Just being able to just go outside in your parents' backyard or wherever it's at there, and just you're not worrying about anything. You're not worrying about craziness happening.
Right. Like I told you, man, the last couple of years I was in the city, just the noise alone. Just constant 24/7 noise, just 24/7 people everywhere I went. Just walking. It was just maneuvering in and out of people constantly, and just it was weird. It added to my stress levels. Just minutely added to my stress levels. And, I think that there's something about people we are definitely tribal, but I don't know that we're meant to be surrounded by millions of each other that are very, very close.
Yeah, and then the pandemic happens, which was like intensified everything even more, and people really became aware of how close quarters everything really is in the city.
Sure.
Especially when you can't go anywhere and like you're just people upon people. I think the number is 150, something like that. I read where humans are meant to be in tribes, like you said, but after the 150 mark, it starts getting kind of chaotic when you start getting more than 150 people involved.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, you know. And well, here's a good example. Don't ask me why I know this number, but the neighborhood I lived in is actually Lakeview, is a neighborhood in Chicago, and the square mileage of Lakeview is the same as Havana, Illinois, and there's 100,000 people in it.
Holy shit!
Yeah. So the land size is that of Havana, Illinois. All right, and there's the size of Peoria, essentially, 100,000 people.
Yeah, wow.
You should not be living like that. I don't think it's the healthiest means for humans to be living like that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because now I'm thinking about out here. Yeah, it's very similar. There's like these pockets of different suburbs or whatever, but yeah, like it's just so dense.
Yeah, so dense. People. Yeah, it's like I said, I felt it adding to my stress levels. There were numerous reasons why I decided to go to the suburbs, but that was probably up there as one or number two, you know, of like, man, I just feel like I can't relax as much.
And shoot, man, I mean, we'll get into the health and fitness here in a sec, but yeah, stress is so important for health. Low stress and sleep, getting the right sleep. And I feel those are things in society. It's where it's the exact opposite. It's high stress, go, go, go. Sure. And this quote unquote team no sleep everyone's on. It's like, that's not me. I get my 8 hours, like, but we're just trained as a society to burn yourself into the absolute, to nothing pretty much.
Yeah. So me personally, I've definitely put a much larger focus on sleep in the last few years. I do pretty well with it now as far as getting like 7 to 8 hours. Mm-hmm. But yeah, as far as like just normal stress levels, I'm terrible. I mean, legitimately terrible at it. I'm one of those people that I don't want to say I probably stress easier than I think I do, but the stress affects me like much, much worse. So one of the measurements that I look at a lot right now on the fitness tracker I have, man, is HRV, heart rate variability. And that's something that smart people, for lack of better terms, say they is a vague term, but they say that, it's a sign that you are affected by stress much, much worse. My HRV is extremely low.
Is that something that you wear all the time? It's monitoring it all the time?
Yeah. So what I wear is a Whoop strap. So I have a Whoop strap. It measures my sleep, everything. Right. And one of the numbers that it measures is your heart rate variability. And, the HRV number is something that doctors, scientists suggest that you're wearing your stress much more if your heart rate variability number is lower. And, I guess like the average healthy adult, someone is like, anywhere between like 60 and like 120. And I'm like never over 45 ever. And mine's as low as like the teens and 20s some days.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I just wear stress terribly, man, honestly. I don't know what it is. It's just something that, I think a lot of it just has to do as well, just like how hard we are on ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I'm definitely like, I don't think that it's possible that someone could be harder on me than I would ever be on myself. Yeah. And I don't mean that like any sad way or anything like that. It's just, to me, I've always like performance managed myself with that, I've pushed myself and driven myself off of that, It's not healthy, don't get me wrong, but it's been good for results for me.
Yeah, well, you're leading me right into, so if I had, so to frame this, you have to be, and you inspired me, I was very fortunate, going back to that Canton YMCA, yourself, definitely being one. And then, shout out to the other older people, Wes, the Bohannon brothers.
The legendary Bohannons.
The legendary Bohannons. But like what I was very grateful for, in particular, especially like you and Brett Bohannon, teaching me my way around the weight room and
Sure.
teaching me and showing how dedicated you guys were to your fitness. And I mean, you guys were like big brothers to me. So I'm just like, oh, I got to do what they do, and this, you have gone absolutely 110% everything you've ever done. And that's what I've always admired and respected about you. So I guess I'm opening up. If you could maybe take us along the journey from obviously basketball, your passion and dedication for that, but then you got into fighting, which led you into, I don't even know what to describe it, David Goggins-like challenges. Which I was definitely looking through your Instagram again before all the challenges. I've never even talked to you about those, like besides like maybe through Instagram, but like never had a conversation. So maybe like just tell us where that drive comes from and maybe give us a picture of what you've been doing in those realms the past several years.
Sure. So to kind of touch on the first thing, and it might sound kind of crazy, right? Like this, but where it comes from, like where my drive comes from and like my obsession with things that I like and I'm passionate about is really two things. One, I've never in my life ever felt in place or like normal, right? I've never felt like that in my entire life. I've never felt like I wanted to be normal. I've never felt like, I can never look around and like see people taking what I consider like the easy path, or just like kind of following the path, the biggest one in life is, of course, like high school, college, get married, have kids, especially where we're from, get married, have kids, go do a job that you're probably not happy at because you got married so young and had kids so young. By the time you're 35, 40 years old, you're pretty unhappy in life. I've just never, ever wanted to do those normal things. They never appealed to me. I mean, I'll tell you this, Sam, I still right now to this day don't want to work for anyone else. That drive, my drive really came from that. Like I just never felt normal. I always felt like I had something inside of me that just I needed to get out through passions, and the first one obviously was basketball. And, I chose to be obsessed with basketball, and it definitely, I'll say this, man, I was so obsessed with basketball that it was unhealthy. You know what I mean? I for sure, unhealthy by like standard terms, right? But I sacrificed things that were probably like a step too far, relationships and family and friendships and other things that, I should have focused a little bit more on balance growing up, but at least with like friendships and family and, some of like the things, your tribe and stuff in life that you need, right? A matter of fact, I developed very bad habits going into my adult life because of my obsessions with things, and the first one being basketball. Like I said, I'd spent just over 3 years playing basketball for a minimum of 4 hours a day. That include Christmas, Thanksgiving, you name it, right? And I was just totally obsessed. And the second thing that drive comes from is my dad, for whatever reason, when I was like 13, 14 years old, he had this talk with me numerous times, but I remember the one when I was like 13, 14 that really, really hit me. I think it was just because the age I was and like, really formidable years. Basically told me that the last thing you ever want to do in life is regret anything. And that if you're ever going to do anything at all, go all out and don't listen to anything anyone says. And then fast forward a couple years and my dad's like trying to get me to unrewind or to kind of unwind some of this stuff and have more balance and stuff, I just dove into that. I just kind of took that and ran with it. And, and then there's things too, like you get positive reinforcement and feedback from being obsessed with something because you become good at it, and I became good at basketball and in a relative sense became good at basketball. And I started to get, accolades and awards and people knew me because of that, right? It almost became my identity,
I definitely relate to you in the fact, because I too dedicated a lot to basketball. But then when I remember, when I realized like, okay, I'm this part of me is done for now, or this part of my life is over, and I had held out on all these other things. Not saying that I should have been partying, but when I fell into partying, I was that guy that never did anything. And now just did everything all at one time because I felt like I was making up for lost time.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. You know, and just touch on something else I was saying, because I think it's important to talk about this, because I don't think people realize this. You know, all the like motivational people, especially on Instagram and social media. Listen, I absolutely believe that if you have the passion for something and you are willing, and you know, you have a mindset like I do, and you know, a drive like I do, I think that you should absolutely become obsessed with something, and you should you triple down on it, right? Like that's what you do. The only thing I will say is that you better be prepared to be extremely lonely, one thing, and then two, the thing that I filled out miserably was I took on the identity of the person that was obsessed with basketball, right? It became my identity, and that's just not a healthy thing. I don't think that goes anywhere positive at all. Identifying as a basketball player, MMA fighter is a soul thing, because people individually, no matter what, no matter how obsessed you are or anything, you're so much more than that, right? You're a friend, you're a sibling, you know, a daughter, son, whatever. And I lost that for years and years, and it took me through my fighting career to really realize that, and like start to develop that I'm not just a fighter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's true, because I don't know, we're taught like there'll be time for sacrifice, but you can have balance. You can have both a lot of times. But I know what you mean. I think, and
Sure.
yeah, I agree. Like social media and these people put pressure on people. It's like, oh, well, you have to do whatever it takes, and you have to do this. And that's fine, but life's also very short, and there's a lot of other beautiful moments that surround us all the time that you don't have to say no to all the time. You know?
Yeah, sure. No, I totally agree, man. I really do. Yeah, I just think that there's something there with you know, the balance aspect, and there's something with like just the negative side of becoming obsessed with something, especially when you're young, is just identify as that, you know. So when you lose that, your world is like shattered and you are lost, you know. And I think that happens to a lot of professional athletes, because their entire identity has been being a professional athlete. And when that's gone and done and over, they have nothing, you know. That's why so many of them struggle in life and get in trouble, and you know.
Yeah. So, okay, you went hard at basketball, and then you transitioned into would it be classified as MMA? Would that be
Yeah.
what you were doing? How
Yeah.
did that happen? How did you get interested in doing that?
Yeah, so I always loved the sport, right? I watched early UFCs, loved it. I always loved it. I never thought I would ever fight. Like, it just wasn't even on my mind as wanting to be a fighter. Um, so good friend of ours, you know, one of my oldest and closest friends, Steve Nelson, had already started competing in MMA and had some MMA fights. And, you know, I went up to the gym after college. This is early 2007. Went up to the gym in our hometown, Silverbacks Valley Tudo, and went up to Silverbacks. And, you know, I remember telling Bob Long, my longtime coach and friend, that I just wanted to stay in shape. Just wanted something to push myself, you know, compete a little bit in the gym, but had no interest in ever getting into a cage and fighting someone, for God's sakes, right? And 3.5 months later, I had my first amateur fight. It was pretty much all over with from there. I was, again, something else that I just, fell obsessed with, you know. Funny thing about fighting was I didn't have early success. I started out my amateur career 0-2, and then that really sparked the drive of like, okay, I'm not going to be a failure. I don't care if it's fighting in a cage or what it is, but I'm not going to fail, you know. And I looked at that as a big failure. And so then it sparked this like drive to become good at it, you know. And so, yeah, it just took off from there, man. And I fought for 7.5, 8 years. I competed, and ended up 24 fights in total between amateur and professional. And yeah, it's something that, man, the level, like, it added so much to my life, you know, confidence, another layer of discipline, learned so much about people and relationships, and just anything and everything that could add or benefit to your life. You can find all of that through something that is that much of a struggle.
I keep hearing everyone keeps talking about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, how good it is for you. So pretty much all the qualities you just named.
Yeah.
And I would think other disciplines. Wow. So you fought for 8 years. I didn't realize it was that long. 7.5 to 8 years, huh?
Yeah.
So it's like,
it was definitely wild, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah. So, I mean, I had a couple years where I fought once, you know, I fought twice. And then I had 1 year, I had 1 year where I fought 7 times. So I just had, it was a roller coaster. Is the easiest way to say it.
Yeah, and what was that like compared to basketball? It's obviously two different things, but in terms of like the training you did for fighting compared to like the training you would do for basketball, is it just apples and oranges, two completely
No,
different?
actually, it's extremely similar, right?
Mm,
Like the mindset behind it and stuff, right? So yeah, of course, the movements and the physical activity you're doing is much different, but there's a lot of young athletes that get into MMA that weren't athletes playing other sports, right? So they're learning discipline and they're learning how to be an athlete. And
mm,
so like when you have all that and you carry it over into something like MMA, there's advantages there, and then
right.
the other biggest aspect of MMA that's probably I explain it like this to people when they say, man, how could you do that? How do you get used to getting punched or kicked or whatever? And right now, if I throw on a pair of football pads and went and tried playing a high school football game and you lined me up at a receiver and I went across the middle and I had an 18-year-old linebacker tackle me, I might cry. But I could fist fight someone.
Mm,
And I say that because just like basketball, football, whatever it is, you train the motions, you train the movement, you train the activity, and you become familiar with it. You become good at it, right? There's like a big misconception, I think, with fighting in general. And just, I think it's part wired in like humans as the animals we are, that people think that you're either good at it or you're not, right? And it's like, no. There's UFC champions out there that were dorks growing up and got beat up all the time.
mm.
You know what I mean? And it's just like it's like any other sport, right? So I carried over a lot of the things you learn from playing team sports and a lot of, just the drive and stuff from finding success in different sports or basketball, like in my case, carried that over to become a fighter. It's just going to practice like anything else. It's just a different movement, different athletics.
So it is one of those things too. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like you might have been like a good scrapper, street fighter growing up, but that doesn't mean you're going to be a good MMA fighter because it
No,
really is an art, right? Like it's an art. The techniques,
it's
I mean,
sport, just
I'm
like
not
anything.
versed in it, so I don't know. But
Yeah, no, it's just sport like anything else, right? So like, listen, are there really athletic people on the street that can dunk a basketball? Yeah, absolutely. Can they play in the NBA? No, just doesn't
right,
work like that.
right.
There's probably people on the street that, can 360 dunk, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be NBA all-star,
Mm,
it's the same thing as fighting. I mean, yeah, sure. With fighting, it's still a fight. So anything can happen. Right. But yeah, it's just movements. It's training the movements. It's training the technique, just like you would a jump shot or a tackle or a pass or a catch. It's the same thing. And so, yeah, it's a lot of practice and a lot of understanding that like you're going to get better.
okay. And so then transitioning. So your fighting career, you wrap that up, and then all of a sudden, I start seeing on Instagram you doing like these crazy challenges. I'm like, what's Smitty up to now? Like, what's he doing? And there was a jump rope one, I believe.
Yeah.
There was a lunge one. I was
Yeah.
looking. I'm sure you. So could you? To educate me? Tell me about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So really there was a few years gap where I was just living in Chicago. I was working, I kind of fell out of like being in shape and fitness. And, I was really kind of like, I kind of slingshotted back into it. I started working out really hard, pushing myself really hard. I discovered some people like a David Goggins.
Mhm.
I discovered some of these people along the way that they all preached like struggling, right? There was like one theme that just, you want to feel good, you got to struggle. Like you have to struggle, right? Whether it's working out or whether it's pushing yourself to learn more or read or whatever it is, you got to get uncomfortable, basically, right? And I started to fall in love with that lifestyle. I started to fall in love with that mindset. And along the way, just working out, pushing myself, getting in ridiculous shape, right? Maybe the best shape I've ever been in my life, even through fighting and basketball and everything. And, long story short, I found David Goggins, and then I discovered this gentleman by the name of Mike McCassell. And Mike McCassell is who I kind of tip my hat to, is my idea with the project I have and these challenges to raise money for different charities. Straight up stole that from him. I've told him that. I've talked to him on Instagram a few times. I've told him that, like, man, I took your idea. Here's what I'm doing. I appreciate it. And he's like, awesome. Sounds great. Loves it. So Mike has done some of the craziest endurance physical feats in human history. Some off the wall things that don't even sound like they're humanly possible. And so I discovered this guy and just found some drive, from that, and immediately started just kind of connect the dots on things I wanted to do, And so, yeah, the first challenge I did was I attempted to set the 24-hour world record for most double unders on a jump rope, right? So double under, quickly explained, is jump once, rope goes under twice, right?
Mm-hmm.
So pretty common movement in CrossFit and jump rope and things like that. So that was October of 2019. I, just for the record here, I made it 17 and a half hours. I ended up with something called rhabdomyolysis pretty bad and had some kidney failure. Was in the hospital for a couple of days with that. And I still consider that one of the greatest days of my life. Myself and everyone who helped me, from my girlfriend to Steve Nelson to, Bob Long and Barb, his sister, and everyone that helped me with that. We raised almost $3,000 for the local Canton area Special Olympics.
Wow.
Yeah, it was awesome. And it was literally, like I said, I don't know. I don't know of a better day that I've had in my life than that day, even though I almost died. It sounds crazy, right? But so that was the first one. And, going into that, I had already started to formulate this idea that I was just going to start this project and come up with Project 11, and was going to do 11 never been done before physical feats. And each one was going to be to raise money for different charities.
Wow. So how many have you done so far out of the 11?
So I got two done. So I have the jump rope one done. And then the second one was August of 2020. I did a lunge challenge. And this one's actually hilarious how it came about. So there's this giant hill. It's really a small mountain range in Central Florida. So Steve Nelson lives in Orlando, Florida. And just outside of Orlando, there's this little mountain range called Sugarloaf Mountain. And so there's a road that goes up Sugarloaf Mountain to the summit. And Steve was running this hill one day and was telling me to fly down there and work out with him, and telling me, oh yeah, you can't do this. I would beat you at this and whatever, right? Doing what we do. And I told him, Steve, I could lunge up that mountain with a 50-pound weight vest faster than you could run it. And just legitimately, it was like a week later, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to lunge up that mountain with a 50-pound weight vest on. So challenge number 2 was I lunged 1.38 miles up Sugarloaf Mountain Road with a 50-pound weight vest on.
Holy cow.
Yeah, it was about 2,700 lunges with a 50-pound weight vest on, going up like a 15 incline grade.
Could you even walk at the end of that?
Yeah, I felt great. I actually had an Airbnb or a hotel in Cocoa Beach, and we went out to the beach, and yeah, it was. I prepared like probably the best preparation I ever had in my life for anything, for basketball, for fighting, for anything. Very weird. I didn't overtrain. It was the first time in my life I didn't overtrain for something, and so yeah, I was definitely sore, but my legs and my knees and stuff were actually really good. It was my lower back and my back from just wearing the weight vest for a couple hours was really the biggest thing it was. But.
Wow, that's okay. So that's pretty cool, because I'd seen the Project 11. So yeah, So you're going to pick 11 challenges that people haven't done before, pretty much.
Yeah. So my idea on this, right, is I don't want to break anyone's record. Like I have no interest in trying to break a push-up record or whatever. I want to explore limits that humans have never come across before, right? Like I want to find my own limits, but I also want to do things that, again, humans have never done or not on record have ever attempted or anything. A lot of them may be world records, and a lot of them may just be weird things like the lunge one, right? Like I don't know how to quantify that to be a world record necessarily. But yeah, so that's the whole idea on the Project 11, and just drop something here with you now. But the idea that I'm kind of taking this in, it's been just over a year now since I've done one, and I'm kind of ramping up, getting prepared. I got a few that I got in mind that I want to do, a few more challenges. And before I do the next one, I am going to start a nonprofit around this. And what I'm going to do essentially is raise money for the nonprofit. And then the nonprofit will be geared toward helping like underprivileged kids with gym memberships, doing things like that. So just to kind of start my own thing versus, listen, obviously there's a million different charities that are worthy causes, right? But one thing I have a passion toward, obviously, is working out, and I love helping people. And the whole idea came about because I bought my nephew a gym membership for his 16th birthday.
Wow.
And, I just immediately thought of it, and I was like, you know what? What if I just did that? What if I just went to all the gyms that I know and like high schools and stuff around our area, around Canton and Peoria and everything? I just told them, like, here's what I want to do. I want to, buy a membership to Gold's Gym in Pekin, and I have a friend that owns a gym in Pekin, like his gym. I want to buy a year membership for someone. And I want to find an underprivileged kid or a kid, that needs assistance or needs a little push or whatever. Find a kid like that and put the money up for that kid to be able to get into training and just follow a passion that he may have or she may have.
Dude, that's amazing. That's amazing, especially, being someone that grew up on a gym membership and continues to have gym memberships and the importance of it. Like,
sure,
that can really change a kid's life. Or like we were talking at the beginning of this, like really alter the direction of their life in a positive way.
Sure.
Keeping them out of trouble and teaching them discipline, teaching them good. I told someone this the other day. I said, one of the best habits I've ever picked up was weightlifting. And that came through basketball. But once basketball ended, my weightlifting continued. Like, the gym is non-negotiable. It's like you work out. It doesn't matter what else is going on. Like, it's just like eating, breathing, sleeping. It's just part of the human routine. So I think it's incredible what you're doing.
Well, I appreciate that, man. Honestly, I really do. There's a lot behind it, obviously. I just again, it's a passion of mine, right? Like everything involved around, or everything around this is a passion, whether it's helping someone, whether it's, just, talking to different people and businesses and, people who are donating and just all of it. I enjoy all of it. It's something that, to be honest with you, I want to spend my life doing. Like I was telling you, I have zero interest in really working for anyone else. I don't have that type of mind, really. I want to do my own thing and I want to follow passions. I think that's one of the biggest crimes that human race has evolved into, is that so few people spend their life doing something they're passionate about.
100%.
Yeah, I think that's why we see so much mental illness and so much, unhappiness in the world, is just because literally so many people are just doing things they're not happy about. They don't like doing it,
How many people will go to their deathbed and never even know? Like, will never even know they had a passion.
Too, is so many people are unaware of it. They're not even aware that they're unhappy because of this reason. They're not unaware that their anxiety is really just stemmed from the fact that they're not happy with how they're living life. That they're constantly thinking about other things and worrying about other things because they're not doing the things they want to be doing. And that's something that, again, it's just, as I get older and I kind of evolve these passions into things, man, like the project is like, it's like my baby, you know what I mean? It's something that I'll probably work on for the rest of my life. Whether I ever have it as a full-time job or not, I'll do it for the rest of my life,
Well, that's beautiful. And what's amazing about that is it encompasses everything you've ever been involved in, because a gym membership can be a gym membership to a gym with a basketball court. It can be a weight room. It can be to a fighting gym.
Yeah.
It can be to a cross-training gym where they're doing different crazy, flipping tires and doing all types of stuff, Sure. So that's
sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah. Again, I think it's, I think it's something that I'm going to work on the rest of my life. It's something that's probably going to evolve 100 times over again, and the first baseline thing for me is I just want to get this nonprofit incorporated and rocking away, and start raising money and get a website going and, start helping people out, and then every time I do a challenge, we'll boost it on social media and get it out there, to raise more money to be able to help more people out.
Heck yeah, man. Now, will that be called Project 11 or will that be called something else?
It's going to be called something else.
Okay.
It's going to be the One of One Foundation is what it's going to be called. What's it called?
One of One?
One of One. Yeah. Calling it that, obviously, because I feel like, especially as a young kid or just, someone's a teenager or whatever, it's like everyone is one of one. Like, you're only one person. There's not a second of you, right? And by empowering people and enabling people, especially, underprivileged kids and stuff, they have the ability to, again, find a passion, become an outlier in something, whether it's working out, fitness, whatever it is, they just become a healthier person, right? And enables him to be the best version of himself. And again, just one of one, right? There's only one Sam Dever. There's only one me. There's only one of however many kids I can figure out how to help through this.
Dude, I dig that, man. That's incredible. And again, like you bring me to there's something I definitely wanted to talk to you about. And I guess I'm fanboying a little bit here. As I follow on some of your Instagram posts, there's been a couple times where I'm like, dang, Smitty's shredded. I'm like, he got shredded. Like, you've been shredded before, but I'm like, so I want to get because I'm one of I know you are too, and probably we study a lot of the same stuff, maybe study different things, but I'm obsessed with nutrition, fitness routines, just different things. The body's a science, right? Like just different things you can play with. Some things work for some people, some things don't work for people. If you're willing to share, do you have a particular nutritional plan or philosophy in terms of weightlifting again to cardio, like, or do you just mix it up constantly? I was wondering if you could just share a little bit about that.
It's kind of a mix at this point, right? So I follow a lot of different things, right? Like all the fad stuff, Listen, people like to call them fads, but the truth of the matter is like, I don't know. There's not many diets in the world that are like unhealthy. Mm-hmm. It's like if you follow them and you have less calories coming in than or less calories coming in than what you're burning every day, you're going to lose weight, right? If you want to gain weight, you eat more calories and you're burning off, right? Like that's just science. There's no way around that. Any way you bend, whatever. From there, right? Like I just think about it like this. Honestly, I think about it like, depending on what you're doing, whether it's gain weight, maintain where you're at, or lose weight, it's a calorie thing, right? From there, it's about eating the cleanest, purest foods, right? Like the most earth-grown foods, basically, to me, because to me, it's almost like a primal thing, right? Where like we're meant to be eating these type of foods and not these heavily processed foods and things. And then from there, it's like talking about macronutrients and like your body composition, right? Like if you want to put more muscle on, you're going to eat more protein, right? Like it's to me, that's like kind of the basis of everything for what I do now.
So you pretty much just adapt it to whatever your body's calling for at the time.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And again, I've done a lot of different fad diets. I had a lot of success with ketogenic diet for a couple of years. A lot of success. I mean, listen, there's ways to do about any diet, whether it's vegan, vegetarian, keto, carnivore, whatever it is. To me, there's ways to do about any diet that you can be healthy and you can get what you need out of it.
Yeah, that's what I found times like kind of going with that intuition in your body too, because there's times I'm like, I really need a steak. I'm going to go get the steak. And then there's times where, I think I need to fast today or intermittent fast and do the intermittent fasting for a minute. And I don't know who it was, but I was listening to I don't know if you follow Mark Bell.
Yeah.
And those guys, they were quoting someone. Basically, this guy said, what you said at the beginning of this health thing, it's all about calories in, calories out. You can say you're doing this, that, and the other, eating this. At the end of the day, calories in, calories out. Like that's, and there's some other bodybuilding guys I followed that say this pretty similar thing. You don't eat crap, obviously, but they're like, eat clean and burn more than what you're bringing in.
Yeah. So I'll say this, honestly, and it sounds funny, but I eat more crap right now than what I ever have in my life.
Honestly.
Really? Yeah. But I also burn more calories every day than I ever have in my whole life. I mean, it sounds funny, right? But like one of the things that doing endurance stuff has like, it's given me is that, listen, pretty much if I hit the 4,000 calorie mark in a day, I mean, like if I burn off 4,000 calories, it's hard for me to eat that many calories.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, even through a steak and rice or whatever, it's hard for me to eat that. So one thing that happened when I was getting ready for the jump rope challenge was, I mean, dude, I used to finish the night with tacos and pizza regularly and like almost couldn't keep weight on. Legitimately. Like I eat more junk right now than what I have in a long, long time. Like maybe my entire life, honestly. And do I think it's healthy? No, probably not. But I also have a pretty realistic view on what I'm doing with these challenges, and those aren't really healthy either. Um, they're just not. Like, I'm putting my body, my life on the line doing these, you know? So for me, it sounds crazy because I am into like health and fitness a lot, but I'm almost looking at this like, you know, I'm going to enjoy one part of this at least. And, you know, unless I am obese or I'm unhealthy or like, you know, I have joint pain or body pain because I'm eating so much garbage, then, you know, if I'm still able to lose weight, I'm eating pizza, then again, I'm at that point, it's really body compensation, right? So like, you know, if you're burning more calories than what you're taking in, like you're already at kind of a healthy point, right? So from there, it's like, again, if you want to eat more protein to get more muscle, that's cool, right? But if you want to eat pizza and you're still in a calorie deficit, then I don't see as much harm in that as if you're in a calorie surplus and you're still eating pizza.
Yeah, shoot, you just shattered a lot of my thinking on some of it.
No, I
I'm
mean,
always like, oh, I got to eat this food for that, this food, you know. But it's like, yeah, you got to be putting in the work. You got to
you
be
gotta put the work
moving
in.
your body.
Yeah, you gotta have a lot of movement, and you gotta, like I said, for me, it's like a 3,500 to 4,000 calorie mark is where it's like, I can't eat whatever I want every meal. Meaning I can't eat a box of Twinkies for breakfast and a pizza for lunch and tacos for dinner. But like one meal out of the day, I can pretty much eat whatever I want, and it doesn't affect me at all. You know. But I know that calorie marker, you know, like I know when I hit that point. I know when I have a workout, just one workout where it's, you know, 1,000 calories or something, like I know that I'm not going to make those calories up. You know, it's just not going to happen. Like I could eat 3 steaks and there's a chance that, first off, I couldn't eat 3 steaks in a sitting. So, but like if I ate 2 steaks in a sitting, I still wouldn't hit the amount of calories I've burned off, you know? So for me, a lot of it, honestly, it sounds weird, but a lot of it's just putting those calories back in so I don't lose too much weight. And at the same time, getting to enjoy a pizza.
Do you drink protein shakes and stuff like that still at all?
Yeah, a little bit, but not a lot, man. I take a lot of vitamins.
Yeah, me too.
I'll tell you what I take. I have a high grade electrolytes for when I'm doing some sort of like endurance thing and I'm just sweating a lot. I take essential amino acids, which are like a pre-workout kind of. There's a little bit of caffeine in them, but they're just essential aminos. They're awesome, really. They're just great for energy, great for like even joints and things like that. And I take creatine, and that's legitimately about it. Right?
Creatine, when I went off it for a while, and I remember when I rediscovered it and got back, I think it makes it, I mean, I don't know how much of a difference it makes, but I think it definitely does something. Like it definitely helps you retain a lot more, I feel.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, remember when it came out when we were kids?
Yeah. I had to get permission from my mom to take it.
Yeah, it was really big, right? And then all of a sudden everyone's like, all it does is hold water in your muscles. That's it, right? Well, then it like went away for like 10 or 15 years almost, you know, and then now it's like back again. Well, now that it's been back, there's like a lot of good studies around it. And a lot of those just show that not only does having that water in your muscle, you know, enhance just driving nutrients into your muscles as well, which is good, obviously, but there's also some studies that show like cognitive effects that it actually has a benefit to just your brain in general as well. So I don't know, to me, I like it. I get no negative effects from it. You know, listen, is it like taking a shot of steroids? No, you know what I mean? But is there a benefit to it? Yeah, I think so.
And I believe it's the most studied supplement ever. I think there's like 40 to 50 years of research behind it. It's been around for a long time.
Yeah, it makes sense. Obviously, I mean, it's been, you know, like we said, it was so big in like the 90s and 2000s, and then now it's been back now for 10 years or something. And yeah, it's big, man. It's everywhere now, and it's super cheap. It's like legitimately, it's like I don't know of another supplement that you can buy a 3-month supply for like $14.
Well, yeah, I'll share this with you. So one thing I started doing probably maybe a couple years ago, and I'm sure any gym rat can relate, the famous pre-workout drinks.
Yeah, listen, I'm
it's like taking a shot at the club. But the thing is they fill them with so much crap. They put way too much caffeine in it. There's been a couple times on pre-workouts where I'm like, I took way too much. way too much. I had to like leave the gym because I'm like, it was bad. But I watched this guy shoot. What was his name? Dang it, you'd know him. Omari Surf or something like that on Instagram. Bodybuilding guy, Omar Surf. I'm mispronouncing his name, but he did it. I watched one of his YouTube videos. He goes, "Here's how you make your own pre-workouts." He's like, the main things you need, and this I'm just speaking for me personally, but basically creatine, beta-alanine, citrulline malate. Buy those separately, the purest kinds you can get, mix those together, and I swear that's worked like a charm for me without all the other crap.
Yeah. No, yeah, I'm sure. I mean, honestly, like the pre-workouts you see now, like the powders or even like the bangs and the drinks and stuff that are already made, right? Like those have a lot of crap in them, obviously. But yeah, what they try to like sell everyone on, other than just like the branding and all of that, is just that it's all in one, right? Like you get it here, it's cheaper than if you bought all the ingredients separately. You know what I mean? But with that, yeah, there's a lot of convenience to it, but you also get a lot of crap in that, Listen, one thing I'll tell you, one of the most unhealthy habits I've had for years and years, man, is caffeine. Like I'm bad. I mean, I've literally been on caffeine before, where we're talking about 1,000+ milligrams a day every day. You know what I mean? Like terrible. It's just probably the most unhealthy thing I have, other than like my stress levels. For me, it's just caffeine.
Yeah, giving up coffee is one of the best things I probably ever did.
Yeah, and see, for me, like if I just drink coffee in the morning, I'd be the happiest person alive, honestly. And I get by with it a lot, but when I have those days where I don't sleep that much is where I will drink some pre-workout, or I'll stop and get a bang. I'll have a coffee in the morning before I leave the house. I'm like, well, that didn't work. And then I stop and I slam a bang on the way to work, and now I'm like 500 or 600 milligrams of caffeine in already, and it's 6 a.m.
Yeah, it's I think caffeine has its place, and it can be, but yeah, I'm one of those people, and this is on me. Like I'm not good at moderation as much. So when it came to coffee, I couldn't have the one cup. I ended up getting my own coffee pot. I would drink a pot of coffee, and then when it gets to the mid to late afternoon, like, oh, well, let's go get a $2 Starbucks, just a little pick me up. And then I'm like, yeah, this is a problem. So.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, I think for me, it's like, it's one of those things that's on the list that I want to address, but to be 100% honest, until I control my stress levels, I don't think it's something that is, for me, it's like, it's right behind, like, figure out how to live a less stressful life. You know what I mean? Right behind that is like, 1A and 1B.
Well, and actually, we're about to hit that hour mark here. And one thing I did want to ask you, when you were talking about stress, is there any things that you've done, whether it's meditation or anything in particular, or working out, that's helped you with your stress?
Yeah, I mean, obviously activity, obviously, working out, obviously, I would say number one thing is find some struggle, get uncomfortable. To me, that helps me with everything: mental health, stress, everything all in one. Push yourself, exert yourself, all ways to say it, obviously, but just struggle. And then two, something I've come across really in like the last year, but I've been doing it more frequently in the last couple of months, is breathing exercises, right? Been doing different breathing techniques, box breathing, and doing like Wim Hof breathing techniques. Seems to help me quite a bit. I like it. It's just, stress is a weird thing, right? Because when I get stressed, I don't do those things, so it's not like, it's like when I get stressed, it's not like I'm definitely more stressed now, so let's slow down and do something to kind of de-stress. Nope. If I'm stressed, it's already too late. It sounds funny, but it's true for me, so it's like, for me, I usually go a day or two being stressed before I'm able to kind of corral it, and then say, okay, no, I'm stopping. I'm going to do some breathing techniques. I'm going to go get a really hard workout in today, whatever it is, to kind of bring myself back down to some sort of baseline.
So the key is not to get to that stress.
100%. Yeah. Huh. Yeah, for sure. For me anyway, for sure. It's that's like, it's just preventing that stress, right? Whether it's letting stuff roll off your shoulders a little bit different, whatever it is, just letting things go a little bit more, whatever. It just, listen, I have a stressful job. You know what I mean? I work in transportation, logistics, and like warehousing and stuff. So I think I just in general have a stressful job. I mean, listen, there's something to, again, we talk about tribes and numbers and stuff, right? But I mean, I've had a job where I was a leader of a 500,000 square foot building with 150 employees in it. You know what I mean? It's like, and listen, not to toot my own horn or anything like that, but when you have a job like that, it's like you're almost signing up to have a certain level of stress.
Yeah.
You know? I have a job like that now where I'm a logistics manager, essentially, or like an account manager in logistics, where I signed up for a job that, again, it's compensation's better, but it also comes with higher levels of stress, right?
Especially in that industry, I would think, right? Because all the deadlines and things that need to happen for logistics.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's just always clients, and there's always, expectations and, numbers and metrics and scores and everything else that the world's driven off of. And it's just, it's weird. It's weird because when it's me individually, I like live for that, right? I live for those expectations and goals and things like that, right? But when it's a job and you're doing it for someone else, essentially, right? You're doing it to make a living and earn a living, obviously, and have money. But in the same hand, like, again, it's something that it doesn't feel like a passion. And so I think because it's not a passion, it also adds levels of stress, right?
Yeah, that's so I mean, yeah, you probably have to work out and have to take care of yourself in those higher levels so your body's able to handle it more when you do.
Yeah, I think so, honestly. I mean, listen, I've seen people come into this world, whether it's warehousing, distribution, logistics, transportation in general, whatever. I've seen people come into this world and almost look like they had a job as like the president, where 4 years later they look like they've aged 25 years.
Yeah.
They've gained 40 pounds and aged like quadruple the amount of time. It's like, oh my God. Like, yeah, it's not uncommon, man. It's not uncommon in these jobs too, where the turnover is crazy. People are like, yeah, I'm good. Like, I don't need to do this.
Man, well, my friend, it's been a pleasure talking with you on here. And I really appreciate the insights. And I think it's so amazing, the journey you've been on, the one you continue to go on, and, you launching the Project 11 and the One of One nonprofit. So I definitely, please keep me in the loop of that, because I think that is an awesome thing.
I appreciate you having me, man. And I've had an awesome time tonight, honestly, man. It's been good just catching up in general and talking shit with you. And yeah, man, I think you're doing an awesome job. One, with growing the hair, and two, just in general, man. You listen, one thing that you have that will lead you to success of podcasting, I think, and I was thinking about this through a prior episode you posted, is that you have about as a wide as array of friend group that you could possibly have.
that is correct.
Yeah, you have access to professional basketball players, professional fighters, actors, literally musicians. Like you have access to so many different types of people.
I've rolled in a lot of circles. That's what I do. I've definitely rolled in a lot of circles, but that's what makes life interesting. I like that I can talk to people of all different industries and different things. And I was excited to have you on, not only because we go way, way, way back, but I don't know anyone that does what you do, because no one does what you do, like the Project 11 and your challenges. And
listen, I love it, right? Like, I love the fact that there's not many people out there doing it. You know what I mean? I live for things like that. And like I said, the whole basis of it anyway, for me personally, is that find my limits and find human limits. You know what I mean? So I love that aspect of it. But seriously though, I mean, I think that your podcast in general, like, you're going to have so much success with it, just because, again, you have such you can reach out to anyone, right? Like, you have so many different types of people that you can reach out to and talk to and stuff. And that, again, I think that for me anyway, that's what I love, right? Like, I want to find someone that I don't know they are. Maybe nobody knows who they are. Maybe they have 200 followers on social media, right? But they're a super interesting person because of things they've done in their life,
And that's the thing too. Like, I've realized, as I've gotten older too, like, social media is a gift and a curse. Like, as of right now, like, I use it to communicate for the podcast. I'm like, God, I hate being on here. Like, I hate being on here. And so, how many followers do you got? And this, that, and the other. But like, there's so many interesting people in the world where people have no idea who the hell they are, and they're not on social media. Like, even, you name it, it could just be anybody, but like, anyone who's lived life is interesting.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, listen, like for me anyway, like the thing that I do right now with these endurance records and stuff, right? Again, the guy Mike McCassell, right? I'll tell you one thing, one world record he has, all right, that'll blow your mind. So he has about 12,000 Instagram followers, and he has like 7 world records. All right, one of them is he climbed a 20-foot gym rope 1,450 times, which is the equivalent of the height of Mount Everest. It took him 27 hours.
He did it straight for 27 hours?
Yeah. I mean, he took breaks, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, he didn't stop for 27 hours, basically 1,450 times a 20-foot rope, right? And again, that guy's out there, and like, no knock on him or anything, right? Because like, I don't really care about followers, but his 12,000 followers or something. You know what I mean? It's like, for me, when I hear about someone like that, I'm like, what's he have? 400 million followers? Like, that's the greatest guy ever, you know? Yeah. It's just funny, you're right? I mean, there's so many interesting people out there that you know, maybe people don't know who they are. You know what I'm saying? And for a form of podcasting like this and just long form conversations like this is, I feel like through some of the bigger podcasts in the world, right? Through Rogan and through Radio Lab and just through NPR and whatever, they have some of these guests on and talk about some of these stories and stuff that have exposed the world to those people or those stories.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And podcasting is my favorite form of media for that reason.
Yeah. No, I appreciate all that. And I appreciate the end. Yeah, you're right. It's in long form, especially. Rogan's really what got me into listening to podcasts. And then I can't tell you how many people Rogan brought on that I went and learned about just because he brought them on.
Listen, the greatest gift that I feel like he's ever given to the world is just that, right? It's to me, it's one of the best gifts that I've ever seen a celebrity of any sort bring to the world, is that he has brought so many people into, I don't want to call it fame, but just he's gotten attention to so many different intelligent people, scientists and, you know, athletes and whatever else, right? Just influencers in general that are so interesting, so intelligent, you know, that is just literally, I don't know, hundreds of people have come through and now have a following because they were so interesting, you know, all because they sat down and talked for a couple hours.
Well, what's interesting now is his platform is so big. He literally, I don't want to call it this, but it kind of is. It's power. Like, it's power in a sense of, all right, the news stations won't bring this person on. I'm bringing him on. And guess what? It's going to get more views than even if they would have brought him on. So
yeah, listen, love him or hate him, agree with him or not, right? He's the most prolific interviewer and the most listened to person in human history. You know what I mean?
Who never intended to be that. Who didn't intend to be that whatsoever.
No, he's like an alpha male comedian that just like gets high and drunk and talks to his friends, you know. And then he started using contacts to get smart people on and talk to them about what he's interested in, you know. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, he's got 300 million downloads, and he's the biggest form of media that's ever existed in human history.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It really is, man. I give him so much credit for that, and I still listen to so many of his episodes, you know, because the people, the interesting people, and just that I'm fascinated by outliers, right? Outliers and people who do amazing things. I'm fascinated by it, you know, and his podcast is that for me. You know, I look at it as an outlier. I look at it as one of those, again, it's the biggest form of media that's ever existed. So I'm very thankful for podcasts for that reason, because they brought so many people to my attention that I follow and draw inspiration from. And it's awesome. It's an amazing form of media that we have nowadays.
Absolutely, man. And I always give the guest the last word. Is there anything you want to leave us with? You've said a lot of inspirational things, but it could be anything, something that's on your mind, something for motivation, anything, man. It can be absolutely anything.
No, listen, I'll echo this, man, that I appreciate the conversation. You know, it's, again, I'll echo this with growing up in a small town, right? Like we still to this day, you know, like I just turned 37 years old yesterday, right? We probably met.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. We probably met when we were, I don't know, you were probably 12 or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, probably.
12, 13 years old. You know what I mean? And all these years later, no matter how much we evolve and how much we change, we can still have conversations and be ourselves with each other because we were around each other through so many important years, so many important times. We've spent so much time together. But then, second thing I'll say is the struggle aspect in life, right? So we become our best versions of ourselves when we are involved in struggle. And I feel like this world is growing in a direction away from that struggle. We've used technology and everything else to get away from that struggle, right? Which obviously, listen, I don't want to have to fist fight a lion to save my life, right? So I'm very thankful for certain forms of media and technology and things. But on the same hand, I feel like that is such a big reason behind mental illness and struggles that people have, is because they're not uncomfortable, they're not struggling, And to tie it together here, man, no matter what we were doing at the YMCA, all the fun we were having playing basketball, we were also struggling because we were trying to become better athletes. You know what I mean? And we were just struggling because socially we didn't know what the hell we were doing, And listen, we were throwing each other's basketballs in the pool and goofing off half the time, right? But on the same hand, like, we were trying to become better basketball players, which is a form of struggle, So we have a weird bond, right? We have a deep bond in the sense that because these struggle through these, formidable years, man, we're still able to sit down and talk like this after all these years. I can talk to you, I can text with you 2 or 3 times a year and sit down and have an hour and a half long conversation with you like it's nothing, like nothing's changed.
Like nothing ever changed, right? Like
yeah, and again, just draw it all together here, man. To me, struggle, like if you're struggling in life in general, like you're unhappy, you're unhealthy, whatever it is, like just realize that you probably need to chase a passion, follow a passion somehow, and that you probably need to induce yourself into more struggle, because when you have that struggle, you will overcome. And when you overcome things, you feel good. You start to build confidence, and it's a cycle you can start that's extremely healthy,
That was beautiful. And I completely agree. Like, those times at the YMCA, those were such a pivotal time in our adolescence and growing up. And yeah, you're one of those people too, where we go live a bunch of places, we meet different people and this and everyone. I see you 20 years later, it's like, oh, hey, Smitty. it's like nothing's, there's no mask to wear. Like, there's no, like, me, like, me from Canton, Illinois, carrying my ball everywhere, you carrying your ball everywhere. And it doesn't get more real than that,
No, it doesn't. And I think it's a special thing to have this day and age, when we have to walk around and pretend to be ultra professional at a job, and have to, again, just have a certain type of personality in public, and, have to worry about what you're saying and what you're doing and everything else constantly, and it's a very freeing, beautiful thing to have people that you can just be yourself with no matter what.
Absolutely, man. If people want to follow you or follow Project 11, are there places people can go to follow?
Yeah, so it's quite literally Mitty11 on all forms of social media. That's MITTY11, Mitty11, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of it. So,
all right, sweet, awesome. And well, my friend, this was so amazing. Stick around for a second after I hit the end button here, but I much appreciated, man. You're a very inspirational guy. You continue to inspire me, and I can't wait to see where everything's going to take off for you with all these projects you have going on.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, my man. Till next time.